You're cooking, answering emails, packing a bag, or just moving through the house, and your dog is watching you. Not barking, not pawing, not asking for anything obvious, just watching from the kitchen doorway, the hallway, or the floor nearby. A lot of owners read that as clinginess. Some read it as anxiety. Some even think, my dog is obsessed with me. But very often, it's something calmer than that. In a lot of ordinary home moments, this kind of quiet watching is less about panic and more about monitoring a familiar person inside a familiar routine. That's the real shift in this video. Because the goal is not to overread the stare, and it's not to ignore it either. The goal is to understand why some dogs stay connected by quietly keeping track of you, and what that tells you about the pattern underneath.
Hidden dog signals. Understand your dog better.
This behavior stands out because it feels so deliberate. You walk into the kitchen, and your dog appears in the doorway. You open your laptop, and a few seconds later, they're lying a few feet away, watching. You start putting on shoes or picking up your keys, and they're suddenly alert, like your movement means something. That's why owners notice it so strongly. It doesn't feel random. It feels personal. And honestly, that makes sense. A quiet dog watching you can feel more meaningful than a noisy dog asking for attention, because there's something focused about it. It can look like your dog is studying you. But before you decide what it means, it helps to make one distinction right away. The behavior is real. The meaning depends on the pattern around it. Because a dog watching you while you chop vegetables, close your laptop, or move from room to room is not automatically saying the same thing in every home. The most common misread is simple. My dog watches me all the time, so something must be wrong. Or, my dog is too attached. Or, my dog can't stop monitoring me. And again, that reaction is understandable. You noticed a real behavior. The problem is not that you noticed it. The problem is that one quiet moment can get overloaded with too much meaning. A dog calmly watching you while you work is not the same as a dog who cannot settle unless you reassure them. A dog who tracks you in the kitchen is not the same as a dog in visible distress. And a dog who notices your routines is not automatically a dog who is struggling. That's the gentle correction here. Quiet watching, by itself, does not tell the whole story. Because what matters most is not the look alone, it's what the look is part of. In many homes, the strongest, calmer reading is this. Your dog is quietly monitoring a familiar person inside a familiar routine. That's the core meaning to hold on to. Not decoding your soul, not always asking for comfort, not automatically spiraling. Just keeping track of the person whose movement often tells the dog what happens next. And that actually explains a lot. When you move toward the kitchen, something may follow. When you close the laptop, something may change. When you pick up your bag, the next part of the routine may be starting. So the watching is often less about emotional drama and more about orientation. Your dog may be using you as the main reference point in that moment. That's why some dogs don't need to touch you to stay close. Watching may be enough. They can stay connected to the moment just by keeping you in view. And this is where owners often feel relief, because the behavior can look intense when it's actually pretty ordinary. The dog is not necessarily asking for something big. A lot of the time, they're simply tracking a meaningful person and predicting what happens next. That is the strongest interpretation here. Now, that does not mean every quiet stare means the same thing. Timing still matters. If your dog watches you mostly when food-related routines start, then expectation is probably part of it. If your dog watches most when you stand up, get dressed, pick up keys, or move toward the door, then routine prediction is probably doing a lot of the work. If your dog watches you while you work, then settles once they know you're staying put, that's one pattern. If your dog watches you, gets more tense, follows every move, starts pacing, and can't come down, that's a different pattern. That's the contrast that matters. Calm monitoring looks one way, escalating distress looks another. So before you give the behavior a meaning, ask one simple question. Does my dog look more informed by watching me, or more unsettled by watching me? That question gets you much closer to the truth, because the same surface behavior can sit inside a calm routine or inside a harder emotional state. And what happens after the watching usually tells you which one you're looking at. The best way to read this behavior is to watch the sequence, not just the stare. Start with what happened right before it. Did you stand up from the couch? Did you walk toward the kitchen? Did you reach for your laptop, your shoes, your keys, or the treat drawer? Did the house shift from still to active? Then look at the dog during the moment. Are they soft and still? Are they relaxed but attentive? Are they sitting in one place and just tracking your movement? Or are they getting tighter, faster, and harder to settle? Then look at what happens next. Do they lie down once they understand the routine? Do they stay nearby and relax? Do they follow for one short transition, then stop? Or do they keep building into pacing, whining, shadowing, or agitation? That sequence gives you the answer much more clearly than the stare by itself. And here's the practical lens to keep. Some dogs use quiet watching to predict. Some use it to stay oriented. Some use it to remain socially connected without direct contact. Different surface reasons, same broader function. They are keeping track of a meaningful person to understand what this moment is becoming. The better response is usually calmer and smaller than people expect. If your dog is quietly watching you but staying regulated, you usually do not need to make a big deal out of it. You do not need to constantly talk to them, test them, or turn every glance into a full interaction. You can let the moment stay simple. Move normally. Keep your routine clear. Notice whether your dog settles once the next step becomes obvious. That helps because sometimes owners accidentally build a bigger loop around a pretty calm behavior. They react to every watch. They give extra reassurance every time. They keep interrupting the dog's own settling process. And sometimes that adds more energy to the moment than the dog needed in the first place. This does not mean you should become cold or ignore your dog. It means a calm behavior often deserves a calm response. If the pattern is soft, answer it softly. And if the pattern is not soft, if the watching regularly turns into tension, pacing, whining, or inability to settle, then the watching is not the main issue. It is just one visible piece of a bigger pattern. That is when the sequence deserves closer attention. So what does it mean when your dog quietly watches you while you cook, work, or get ready to leave? Most of the time, in familiar home routines, the clearest answer is this. Your dog is quietly monitoring a familiar person to keep track of what happens next. That is the main reading. Not automatic obsession, not automatic distress, not a mystery that needs dramatic decoding. Just a dog using you as a point of reference inside an ordinary routine. And once you see it that way, the behavior usually feels a lot less strange. Because some dogs stay close with contact, and some dogs stay close with attention. That quiet watching may look intense from the outside, but very often it is simply how your dog stays oriented to you and to the flow of the home. So the next time it happens, don't just ask, "Why is my dog staring at me?" Ask, "What routine is my dog tracking right now?" That question will usually tell you more. And if your dog does this at home, tell me when you notice it most. When you're cooking, working, or getting ready to leave. That pattern is usually where the meaning becomes clear.
Hidden dog signals. Understand your dog better.